Thanks, Tim, and good afternoon to all. Moving to slide 2. First Wave Cloud Technology is a cybersecurity company. Its mission is to democratise enterprise-grade cybersecurity as a service for small to medium businesses globally. I'll elaborate further on the 4 elements of the statement as we go through the presentation, but the bottom line is that our intellectual property, which had its genesis in the Telstra Research Laboratory many years ago, makes expensive cybersecurity products from the world's leading vendors and normally only available to large enterprises, inexpensive and hence available to SMBs globally from the cloud under a subscription. Moving to slide 3, I'd suggest there are 5 key takeaways for your listeners today. Number 1, the global market opportunity for our offerings is huge. A $29 billion target market netting to a $4 billion obtainable market, that is, revenue we can access through our current channels. Number 2, our intellectual property is unique and uniquely services this market. Number 3, in the last 12 months, we've developed a large channel of partners, primarily telcos, through which in June last financial year, we generated $9 million of annualised recurring revenue, $3 million of which was from international partners, a 7-fold increase over the year. Number 4, the company has experienced people at the helm. And number 5, and fortuitously perhaps for new shareholders, based on our international experience over the last 12 months, we believe we are at a key inflection point beyond which we expect to see a boost in uptake and accelerating revenue growth. I'll explore each of these further as we go through. Moving to slide 4, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know in this slide. The global cybersecurity market is, as the headline says, a tsunami. The headlines are mostly about larger and publicly known organisations, but the unstated reality right now, here today, is that 43% of cyber attacks, increasing daily, are on SMBs, those that are the most vulnerable through their lack of expertise and their limited capacity to pay. In slide 5, let's take a deeper look at the global problem that creates the huge market opportunity. It's twofold. Firstly, with the service provider, and secondly, with the end user, the SMB. Last financial year, an estimated $150 billion was spent by organisations globally on fighting cybercrime. My view is that this is significantly understated. Very unfortunately for buyers trying to mitigate cyber threats, the cybersecurity solutions market is immature, highly complex, and almost completely fragmented. The service providers, primarily telcos and ISPs, service the SMB market globally with communication services which are now totally commoditised, and consequently, they are under enormous competitive pressure from retail and cloud providers, and margins are declining. They need new revenues. This combination, of course, makes them the natural provider of revenue-adding cybersecurity services, but they move slowly. When the end user SMB tries to remove threats at the email, web, endpoint, and firewall, their organisation's perimeter to the outside world, they will be faced with buying up to 4 products from 4 different suppliers and implementing, monitoring, and managing them separately. This is unrealistic to expect, and hence SMBs don't do it and are poorly and only partially at best protected. Slide 6, First Wave accesses the $4 billion global SMB opportunity primarily but not exclusively through the natural provider to this market, the telco and the ISP. On slide 7, let's now look at more detail at First Wave's solution to these problems, how we get to the market and the success we've had to date. First Wave's intellectual property is its Cloud Content Security Platform, or CCSP for short, shown in the centre of this slide. I said at the outset that it's unique, and let me explore the 4 elements of our business model to explain this. Slide 8, firstly, we do not compete with the best and the biggest global providers of cybersecurity products. On the next slide, sorry, you've moved too quickly. You're moving too quickly. Can you go up, please? Back, back, back. When I say next slide, we'll move on. Thank you. We don't compete with the best and the biggest global providers of cybersecurity products. Rather, we license the best-in-class technology from the likes of Cisco, Simplified Systems, Trend Micro, Fortinet, and Palo Alto Networks, and through CCSP, virtualize them, that is, make them available as software from the cloud, and multi-tenant them, that is, we slice them up so multiple users can access the one license and hence for a fraction of the price. This is unique. In addition to prevention capability of these technologies, we add advanced detection and response functionality in CCSP. Again, so far as providing this level of detail of protection for SMBs is concerned, this is unique. Moving down. And through CCSP, we provide what's called a single pane of glass. That is, an interface for the service provider to operate and manage all of these different technologies as one. This is unique and significantly lowers their cost to serve, thus driving up their margins. Moving down again, these services for email, web, endpoint and firewall threat prevention and advanced threat detection and response are provided as new revenue generating cloud delivered services for the full range of services providers. And moving down, finally, this provides SMBs globally with simple and affordable enterprise-grade threat protection at their perimeter to the outside world. This is unique. Moving on to the next slide, and we are working right now to provide one-click world-class protection of the SMB end user in a very familiar format on their mobile devices. Next slide. First Wave's come a long way since listing in 2016. It is required, and the company has benefited from the ongoing patience and support from its founding and current shareholders. Starting in 2016 with one partner and security services for email and web only, early stage web. Today we have 134 partners, of which over 50 are billing customers, 6 security services across the full perimeter of email, web, endpoint and firewall, and advanced threat detection and response over email. On the next slide, these services you'll see are delivered through a set of cloud platforms and by our people in locations throughout the world. This is a huge achievement for a little company based in Sydney in Australia, but it also has to be said that it has taken more time and come with more investment than anticipated. In the next slide, but over this time and through this investment, we now have services available and the channel established to get to the $4 billion opportunity. The leverage that exists through this multi-level channel of one level one partner to many level two partners to many more SMB end user customers is self-evident on this slide. On the next slide, you'll see revenue growth is following, with annualised revenues at the end of the last financial year totalling 9.3 million, composed of 6.3 million domestically, primarily through our partner Telstra, and $3 million, up 7-fold from the end of the previous year, from our international partners. Slide 17 shows that the company is led by an experienced and battle-hardened team at the executive level, me as executive chair and acting CEO, Ian Bartram as CFO, and Simon Ryan, who's been with the technology since its inception in the Telstra Research Lab, as CTO. And on the next slide, at the board level, Paul McRae, a software veteran who brought Message Labs, an international provider of integrated mail and web security services, into Australia, and David Huang, an experienced corporate lawyer specialising in capital markets and corporate governance. The company is very fortunate to also have the services of Kevin Block, ex-Cisco CTO for the ANZ. It's acting as its advisor on technology and markets. Slide 19, or the next slide, I suggested at the start that First Wave is at a key and exciting inflection point beyond which we expect to see a boost in uptake and accelerating revenue growth. Over the last 12 months, the enthusiasm we've had from our partners for our technology has, in our view, and even given the 7-fold increase in international annualised revenues, not be matched by the uptake we saw as possible. 6 months ago, we brought a new DNS web threat prevention service from Simplified Systems UK into our portfolio. It has a different adoption model, requiring users to opt out rather than opt in, and adoption is now already starting to scale. This has been instructive to us for our core CCSP offerings in that it has identified friction for both end users and service providers that we now see as a core reason for a slower uptake than thought possible. Our development team is now working on enhancements to CCSP to remove this friction and make it simpler to adopt and use. We anticipate this work will be completed and delivered by the end of Q3, and that uptake can be boosted and revenue accelerate from that point. So moving to the summary on the final slide, With a $29 billion target market netting to a $4 billion obtainable market, the opportunity is huge. Our intellectual property, CCSP, and its ability to democratise enterprise-grade cybersecurity services is unique. We have already established a large and highly leveraged partner network, one to many more, with the capacity to generate significant rates of revenue growth. The company is led by experienced and battle-hard executives and board members, and as I said at the outset, fortuitously perhaps for new shareholders, we believe a key and exciting inflection point is approaching. Thanks for taking the time. I'll turn you back over to Tim for questions. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, John. You obviously were involved in the Australian Rugby League. What attracted you to this business?
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, I was involved in rugby league. That's another story. Well, I've been in the technology sector for a long time, for 40 odd years. So I knew very well the sort of technologies that were the leading technologies around the world from the big providers such as Cisco, etc. What I also knew about them was that they're expensive and they really only tailored to the enterprise and government customers. So there's been a whole section of the user marketplace which has been really totally ignored, and when it has been addressed, it's only been addressed in point solutions. You know, security service for an email, a security service for web, etc. And that sort of part solution type approach just doesn't work at an SMB level. And I've been in and been part of and owned shares in SMBs, and I know how difficult it is. So with those two things, I just looked at the company and I thought, enterprise-grade security services, which are therefore the best in the world, through a process which is inherent in the intellectual property of First Wave, taken into the cloud, and then made available at a price point that suits the SMB customer globally, has to work. And, you know, it takes more time and more money than anyone ever thinks for these things, right? But the premise has to work, because at the moment, all of the market is underserviced and it is getting more and more dangerous every day. And the second element, of course, is how you get to the market, because there's plenty of good products sit on shelves because they just can't get them sold. And the only way that we can do it is through the channel. And so I understood the channel as well. And, you know, this is the telco particularly is a difficult channel, but the thing about the telco channel is once you get into it, it is very, very hard to get out of it. And that's what we found with Telstra over the sort of 15 years that this company's been dealing with Telstra. So I saw then sustainable longevity as well. And I thought I could help, frankly. I thought I could help. So I was keen to get involved.
And John, when does the company expect to be kind of cash flow break even?
Yes, and you know, we've looked obviously at the situation. We look at it all the time because at the end of the day, it is all about cash. When we released our upgraded product in Q3 next year, and we get the take up that we believe we can get, then we'll be pointing towards break even in the next 1 to 1.5 financial years after that. So, you know, we're going to need more capital, but right at the moment, we're focused on doing the job that we can do. And we've still got some significant growth that will come from the products that we're taking to market before we actually roll out the new technology. So, you know, we've got a few irons in the fire, but all of those are aimed at making sure that we do the best job that we can. And our objective clearly is to get to cash flow break even as soon as possible.
And John, just quickly, I was talking to one of your institutional shareholders. He said the Australian market's been sideways for the moment. Is there any opportunity in Australia for First Wave?
There's opportunity everywhere, Tim, because of the problems everywhere, and there's no solutions to it. Getting to it is really a function of what the environment is, how the environment is affected. Number one, by who's selling to it. Number two, by what are they actually experiencing and where do they want to make their investments. And number three, by just the scale. So Australia's small in the scheme of things. Telstra's a large organisation, but in the global terms, Telstra's not. It's not a huge telco, you know. So we've got, when we play on the global scale, you're playing much higher stakes than you play in Australia. So we've got a very developed domestic focus. We've got a very strong change in focus from Telstra that we're seeing, led by Andy Penn from the top down, from the cybersecurity point of view. So Telstra is becoming a much more active organisation in that, and they will set the path, and others will follow.